I think to say it was very moving would be an understatement. And truly one of your, all the films, I've been watching your film since I was 16 years old. I watched your first film, Bombay University, when I was in class 9 in school at Calcutta. And that deeply moved me, and this film also moves me. Questions? Could everybody introduce yourself?
My name is Shunanda Shandal. I am an art historian. I live in Boston. So I deeply appreciate the intimacy and honesty with which you made this film. My parents are of the same age group. And I was full of guilt as I was watching the film that I didn't interview them when I got the chance. They went through the same things, but they were in the Communist Party instead of Congress. Same in the 40s, they were both born in the 20s, so they would be the same age group. And I'm not a filmmaker, but I could have interviewed them taken audio. What I did, try to make it up. My uncle, like yours, who was alive until he was 94, he passed away about 10 years ago. Before he got throat cancer, I interviewed him around 2005-06. I have 3-4 hours of audio. So anyway, my question is, while it is this true, honest and sincere, don't you think showing the moments of passing was a cinematic risk in terms of, making it more mushy and sentimental? I mean, for you it was honest, but don't you think from the audience's perspective, when it's put out there, that instead of references showing the very intimate presentation of their passing last moments, and it very candid actually, that it's a cinematic risk?
Maybe, I'm not sure, but I didn't think about what others would feel because I was doing it, as I said, when I was filming, I was not making a movie. I was just doing a home movie. I didn't think this was actually going to go out to the public till much later. And frankly, I'm not sentimental about death. Sentimental about death because whoever's born is going to die. I'm not sentimental about rituals. Every culture has their own rituals. And for me, there are two things. One is that at the moment of filming, it actually helped me because it was the moment that I was dreading the passing of my parents. So the fact that I was occupied with the technical job of camera actually helped me to deal with that because I was thinking about, just record this. Later on, while editing, it was hard to watch for me, but I would do it because it's the philosophy of documentation process, devoid of meaning. There's no question of how they would feel because they're not here anymore. So it's only a question of what the audience will feel. So I can ask you what it did to you, because I don't think, for me, it's part of the story.
So your mom was, when she was ill, and then she went to Delhi. She was well for a short while, and then she became ill again.
She had cancer.
Yeah, I
know.
know.
So, it's a long process.
So
you were in hospital, come out, and then be okay for some time. Not exactly okay, but functional.
Okay.
My name is Saira. I'm a physician. I'm from Pakistan, Karachi. And I think it's one of the most beautiful movies you've created. Working like in terms of what you just said, I think it's like one of the most beautiful scenes you have shown us, because they lived a full life. Your mother was a rock star. You look like your mother. And your dad was he kept calling himself a bum, but he looked like somebody who just, loved to live, and just a very kind and a fun-loving sort of a person. And you just showed this is how we kind of transition, with all their physical. You could see that it was hard for your dad to walk, but there was beauty in his imperfection. And in the end, when they passed away, it just gives us hope that this is how people need to die, surrounded by their loved ones. Because I worked in nursing homes, and you see people dying alone.
Yeah.
And that was just beautiful to see that they lived a full life. They had this beautiful, they lived till in their 90s. They had this beautiful party that was thrown in their honor. And then in the end, when they died, it was in their own bed, and they were surrounded by all those loved ones. I mean, I think it is something to celebrate, nothing to feel sad about it, because you're right. What are we scared of? We know that we all have to die. So it was a beautiful movie. Very well done.
Yeah, hi. My name is Tilak Verma. I'm also a local physician. It was spectacular, very touching and heartfelt. My question to you is, for those of us who are not filmmakers or don't even have something to shoot a film with other than an iPhone, how should we record something this sensitive for our kids? And what are your plans to sort of leave a similar legacy for your family?
Well, I don't have kids, but as even in this film, there is footage that was shot on the phone, like the rally in 2019. I was there at the rally as a participant. I had no camera, but I had my phone, and so I said, I just got on to stage because I knew the people who had organized the whole thing, so I could film with my phone. So, in a sense, actually, and that's true in a country like India right now, where it's not easy to film sometimes, but everybody has cell phones that record, and all these incidents that the government wants to cover up or not allow to be shown, etc., but it does get recorded. So many times, even lynchings and things like that get accidentally, or somebody's on the spot with a phone and they record it. And so we have, in a sense, they can't suppress everything because there's too many cameras everywhere in the world.
My name is Ahsan. I'm a local Rhode Islander, but from Karachi, Pakistan. So couple of things. It was very nostalgic for me because my grandparents, my father, my parents, and us, and this was exactly around the time that this was happening. So it connected like spot on. So congratulations, at least from that point of view. What I really appreciated about this movie was the rawness of it. It wasn't edited to perfection or anything. It was the way it was. The light, the camera movements, the blurring, the focusing in and out, and all that. And just the way the story was narrated and produced was like, it was perfect in all its imperfections. And how you weaved the pre-partition, partition with the stories of your parents and how and their people. It was wonderful. It was beautiful. I think more people should do that, because I think we are just we want perfection. Everything has to be perfect, perfect. And it was not perfect, but perfect. So thank you for sharing this with us.
Thank you. I should say that Simantini Duru, who has filmed some of this also, because you see me in the film sometimes. So just wanted to acknowledge that she's here as well with us.
My name is Nisha Siddiqui, and I grew up in India, and I just love the relationship between your parents. It was just so loving, and your mother was, her father was just accepting whatever she said. He was accepting and just laughing. It was just wonderful to know. The reason I'm telling you this is my husband passed away recently, and my sons, who are having a very difficult time, that we didn't record all the stuff, because he was a very wise person. He was a wonderful person. But I'm in the process of moving, and I have a son in California who every 5 days is here, and every piece of letter writing of my husband he can find, he is scanning it. He's scanning everything. Even my husband has his reports or achievements when he was 4 years old, or ran a race and he won. All those things are kept.
Yeah.
And he's recording, he's scanning everything of my husband's, and his poetry and everything. Is such a wonderful thing to do. And because ultimately we can't take all these things with us, and we will have to, shred them. But this will always stay with us. And it tells us of how he was, like when he was here so many years ago, he had to leave because he was not under visa. And there's writings, Edward Kennedy wrote for him, and Fogarty wrote for him to stay. All these things are documented, and my son is keeping it.
Yeah.
And I think it's a wonderful thing. It's just too bad that my husband, we didn't do it when he was alive.
Yeah.
And so this touched me a lot.
Thank you. Yeah, and I think that's true, that all of us have parents, all of us have a generation that saw perhaps a better time in the world, in our country especially, than we are in today. And so to lose all those stories is a sad thing. And I think that's one thing that I think the film probably, hopefully, will inspire people to record the elder generation and see what comes of it. And I did that after my parents had passed away. It took me a long time to even start looking at the footage and then to edit it. And then once I started editing, then I was able to fill out the stories, look for archival footage, look for photographs of the family on both sides, and collect all of that to just have a visual element. Otherwise, I had just talking heads.
I'm Ria. I'm a PhD student in history. Thank you so much for this film. I can't not even imagine the process of looking through that footage and sitting with it for so long. And I and like everyone around me was just crying, I think, the whole time. I had a few questions. One was that the choice of music I thought was so moving and beautiful. And we were discussing earlier that a lot of the music is just kind of in the scene itself. It's not a soundtrack, it's what's happening in the moment. And so I was just wondering about the music choices and especially the Kumar Gandharv at the end. I think made everyone cry.
So my father loved classical music, and so there was always music in the house. There was always, if I interviewed them, there would be something running in the background. Of course, I chose the things that I liked the best, but he was listening to music all the time, and Kumar Gandharv was one of his favorites. So yeah, that came naturally to include that music. And even in there's a sequence in which Ranjini is singing during my mother's pottery. She used to have these kind of get-togethers where she did raku firing. She was a potter, but she allowed everybody to choose their glaze, and she would make the pots and people would then glaze it, and then it would be fired instantly. And that would go on the whole evening or from afternoon till night. And then there would be music and food and stuff like that. So, yeah.
How long have you been filming this?
Well, as I said, I wasn't making a film. So, but the footage covers around 25 years. In fact, the earliest footage in the film was shot by my mother, because that's of my uncle when he was 86. And that's the only footage that we have of my uncle. And as you were saying, you regret not having filmed your parents. I regret not filming my two eldest uncles, who were the real political activists, because one passed away when I was 19, and I wasn't a filmmaker yet. But my other uncle passed away when I was 32, and I'd already made Ram Ke Naam, the film that was shown here yesterday. So I was already making films, but I never got around to putting him on film. For one thing, he never wanted to talk about the past.
I have one more question, but this is wholly different. I just don't want to submit to any more subjective. Yeah. So I'm an art historian, and recently I've been, looking at that generation of artists, particularly sculptors, Devi Prasad and that generation. So my question is, Dhanraj Bhagat, that, after World War II, with Holocaust and World War II, the destruction of World War II, European artists, many of them turned to existentialist thinking. They're very, like Giacometti, and they were very much in Francis Bacon. Now, we don't see that among Indian intellectuals. So I know my parents, like Chitta Prasad and all those, they are known to my family, and they were communists. So they had their own way, path forward. And then your parents and their associates were in Congress. But my question is generally, my own hypothesis is that for Indian intellectuals, it was not possible to be, despite the famine and the partition, the violence of which is still being, written about. It's like despicable. Other than the Jewish Holocaust, it is the most despicable, horrible violence in modern history. Despite that, my hypothesis is that Indian intellectuals, is not possible for them to be existentialists. And because existential is like, don't believe in legacy, don't believe in, destiny. It is just chance. It was not possible for Indian intellectuals of any kind, artists or others, to subscribe to that, because there was an issue of nation building. Do you have any thoughts about that?
Actually, I haven't thought about that in those terms, but yes, I think you're right that Indian art in many ways has been, I don't know if this is correct or not, but representational to some extent and not very abstract. But the whole Shantiniketan movement was a kind of modernist movement as well. I mean, you have many people who like even Nandlal Bose and more than Nandlal Bose, Ram Kinkar. So there was, but yet it was not purely abstract. It was a combination of, you could actually discern what they were saying. It wasn't left to everybody's imagination to figure out what that meant.
We will take a couple of more questions more. Last two questions.
So when you went to Pakistan in Hyderabad, I'm sure, the reception was looking great, people were, but how did you feel going there and looking at your mother's old house converted into a hospital?
Yeah, it felt good that it had become a hospital. I mean, that's, so the whole, it's a love affair that I had with Pakistan in the sense of, because I've been there 5 times, but it was all in the period from 1999 when I first went, because I was then doing the anti-nuclear film, and we were part of a peace movement that exchanged visits, the Pakistan-India Forum for Peace and Democracy, and many of us traveled to Pakistan together in a large group, and the next year the Pakistanis would come to India. So these were, on both sides, these were peace activists. Nothing to do with government. In fact, the governments gave us a hard time because getting visas was always difficult. It's even more difficult. Yeah. And this happened mainly during Musharraf's time.
Yes.
Because that was a time when there was a little bit of loosening of attitudes.
And how were you related to Anita Ghulam Ali? Like, was there?
So I'm not related, but they were family friends of my mother's side of the family, and they still are. I mean, to some extent, to the extent that we have contact.
Thank you. Your work has been a great inspiration on me. I've seen every film of yours, and one of the underlying themes in the film is Mahatma Gandhi and his legacy. So I want to ask you that: how do you see his legacy in times like today in India, and all the complications that he had during his time with Ambedkar and everything? And do you think often he's misanalyzed? And as this India is coming with this whole force of fascism with Modi and everything, do you think he is kind of like always misinterpreted? And people are using whatever his legacy is to gain their just how he is just printed on the money note. So I just wanted to ask, how do you see that?
Yeah, so Gandhi has been under attack even when he was alive. I mean, that's why he's not alive. He was killed. Gandhi always said he wanted to live to be 125. But he was killed at the age of 78 when he was in very good health, except that he was on hunger strike a lot. But so obviously he had enemies then. That was mainly the right-wing Hindutva forces who actually, he had become an enemy of them long before even the thought of Pakistan had been conceived. Because the first thing that made him an enemy was the fact that he cleaned his own toilet and insisted that, he broke the pollution purity principle that is the heart of the caste system. That upper caste should not do dirty work. That he insisted that everybody had to do manual labor. And cleaning night soil, that alienated him from the upper castes right away. But today, if you ask anybody in India why he was killed or what the justification for why he was killed, the right wing will tell you that it's because he loved Muslims and Pakistan. He was not standing up for the Hindus, and especially after partition, the violence that occurred, he was blamed for that. Actually, that's not true, because they started hating him because of caste. And it then added to that was the fact that he believed in secular state. There is the other dimension of how he's vilified by those who claim that, on the question of caste, he was not, that he never rejected caste. But actually, you have to study Gandhi closely to know that he did come from a conservative background. He was instinctively egalitarian from the beginning, but he didn't immediately come to the conclusion that the whole of the caste system should be thrown out. He started with untouchability, the worst aspect, and then he was blamed for this. The fight between him and Ambedkar has been exaggerated by forces today, partly because it suits the Hindu fundamentalists to play this up, but partly because even some of the Dalit movement is confused by it. And in fact, I believe that even Ambedkar was never recognized what Gandhi actually was. That he saw Gandhi as patronizing rather than a fellow fighter against the caste system. To me, I see Gandhi as a revolutionary who began his revolutionary movement with caste. And he was a great anti-imperialist, which people don't recognize. I mean, he was fighting the British. And he became more radical as time went on. He said a lot of silly things, and you can easily go back in time, and people do, especially academics, who look at, quote something from the past that he said and say, look, this is what he stood for. But they don't look at the whole trajectory. And if you look at the whole trajectory, you can't, it's unmistakable that he was becoming more and more radical. And by the time he was killed, he had become a complete revolutionary, because even on the question of caste, he began by fighting untouchability, but saying that the four-caste system is okay, it's part of tradition. It's a kind of division of labor, but he began to understand even that is wrong. And at the end of his life, he was advocating intercaste marriage. So once you advocate intercaste marriage, you are a revolutionary, because a caste system cannot survive intercaste marriage. Because by the third generation or fourth generation, nobody will remember what is their caste, because it's all mixed up. So I think he has been vilified for very wrong reasons. But it's a big, it's a concerted effort, especially on the part of the right-wing Hindutva. And if you look at YouTube and stuff like this, all kinds of crazy kind of stories about Gandhi, doing this or that, it's completely fake, which are perpetuated and people believe it. And that's why I was worried about Savarkar becoming a hero to Savarkar is, in my opinion, the actual killer of Gandhi. Nathuram Godse merely pulled the trigger. But the actual Nathuram Godse and Apte, the two guys who were hanged for the Gandhi's murder, were proteges of Savarkar. They ran his paper. They were people who carried out the job that Savarkar had given them. And Savarkar, I don't know if you know about who Savarkar is, but Savarkar is somebody that the Modi government would like to give the Bharat Ratna to, the greatest honor of India, because he actually is the author of Hindutva. The concept of Hindutva is Savarkar's. I mean, because he represents, he's not even a religious fanatic as much as he is a fascist. He believes in, that Hindu supremacy. So yeah, so there's a big movement to talk well of Gandhi in today's India is actually problematic. At the same time, I don't think the Hindu fundamentalists can get away from Gandhi either, because Gandhi internationally and in India amongst ordinary people is still loved. It's only that middle class and elite classes that have been taught the wrong things about Gandhi.
Anyway, I think on this note we should end because we have to leave this room, I guess. But thank you once again for this.
And also the left.
Yeah.
Sections of the left have also criticized Gandhi. Again, I think for wrong reasons, because they hold Gandhi. In the old days, they held Gandhi responsible for holding back the revolution, because the idea of non-violence delayed the Indian independence movement, according to them. But in fact, he's the one who mobilized millions of people, which the left could only do a little bit here and there, kill a few guys here or there, the revolutionary left, but not bring about change on a big scale.
We can speak about this more on Friday. We will have Anand give us a lecture, and there'll be 2 other respondents. So I hope to see some of you again on Friday.
Get the universities to buy the films.
Thank you.
Okay.